Hello and welcome. Today, I'll be introducing the Letter of Release under the Registration of Engineers Act 1967. The Letter of Release, LOR, under the Registration of Engineers Act 1967 is not merely an administrative formality, it is a critical safeguard for fairness, accountability, and public safety. When one engineer is replaced by another, the LOR ensures a clean and transparent handover of responsibilities. This prevents any ambiguity about who is liable for the engineering work at any given time. More importantly, it eliminates the risk of a dangerous gap where no engineer is officially responsible for a project, which could lead to unsafe construction practices and compromise public health and safety. The Board of Engineers Malaysia, BEM, and local authorities emphasize the importance of treating the release process with seriousness and urgency. Engineers are expected to respond within 14 days of a request for a release, and failure to do so may constitute professional misconduct. This requirement is grounded in Regulation 31 of the Registration of Engineers Regulations 1990, revised 2015, which prohibits engineers from intervening in another engineer's work without proper consent or formal termination. The LOR thus serves as a legal and professional mechanism to uphold the integrity of engineering practice in Malaysia. The requirement for a letter of release is codified under Regulation 31 of the Registration of Engineers Regulations 1990, revised 2015, which is enforced by the Board of Engineers Malaysia, BEM. According to BEM Circular No. 008, when an engineer's appointment is terminated, the outgoing engineer must issue a letter of release within 14 days of being requested by the incoming engineer. This rule applies regardless of any other disputes between the outgoing engineer and the client. If the outgoing engineer fails to respond, the incoming engineer may advise the client to submit a stakeholder holding (SH) form to BEM, which allows BEM to hold the disputed fees and issue a confirmation letter enabling the new engineer to take over. The regulation also outlines scenarios where a letter of release is not required, such as when the outgoing engineer has initiated legal action, has been suspended, or has informed the local authority of their withdrawal. These provisions ensure that engineering projects are never left without a responsible professional, thereby maintaining public safety and professional accountability. A proper letter of release must include specific details to ensure clarity and accountability. These include the project name and contract reference, the effective date from which the outgoing engineer is released, the status of fees, whether fully settled, outstanding, or in dispute, a list of documents handed over, such as drawings, calculations, and approvals, and explicit confirmation that liability ends on the stated release date. If there are any safety or compliance concerns, these must be clearly documented in the letter to alert the incoming engineer and the local authority. The letter serves not only as a professional courtesy but also as a legal document that delineates responsibilities and protects all parties involved. It is essential that the letter be specific, auditable, and aligned with BEM's guidelines to prevent future disputes and ensure the continuity of professional oversight. Case Study 1: Client-initiated termination without dispute. In this scenario, a client decides to replace Engineer A with Engineer B, and all fees are fully settled. Engineer A issues a clean letter of release within 14 days, handing over all relevant documents and records. Engineer B then formally notifies the local authority that they are now the supervising engineer, ensuring that there is no gap in professional responsibility. The client retains both letters for their records. This case exemplifies the smoothest and most straightforward application of the release process, demonstrating how proper adherence to BEM guidelines facilitates a seamless transition and maintains public safety. Case Study 2: Client-initiated termination with fee dispute. In this case, a client terminates engineer A but leaves Rm 150,000 unpaid. Engineer A must respond within 14 days, stating the outstanding amount. Engineer B advises the client to submit a stakeholder holding (SH) form to BEM, which then holds the disputed sum and issues a confirmation letter. This allows Engineer B to take over without breaching Regulation 31. If the dispute causes delays, either engineer must notify the local authority to prevent construction from proceeding without a responsible supervising engineer. This case highlights the importance of timely communication and the role of BEM in resolving fee disputes while maintaining project oversight. Case Study 3: Engineer-initiated termination due to non-payment. Engineer A resigns after 6 months of non-payment and must issue formal written notice. They are also required to immediately notify the local authority that they are no longer responsible for the project. Engineer B should only take over after receiving a letter of release or a confirmation letter from BEM. The client must act quickly to regularize the situation to avoid enforcement actions or project delays. This case underscores the engineer's duty to protect public safety by ensuring that the local authority is informed of any changes in supervision, especially when financial disputes arise. Case Study 4: Engineer-initiated termination due to ethical conflict. Engineer A is pressured by the client to approve unsafe design shortcuts. In accordance with BEM's Code of Conduct and Circular No. 001, the engineer must prioritize public health and safety. Engineer A withdraws, issues a letter of release, and documents the unsafe instructions. They must also notify the local authority to enable intervention. Engineer B, if appointed later, must thoroughly review the project and redesign as necessary before resubmitting to the authority. This case illustrates the ethical responsibilities of engineers and the importance of documentation and authority notification in safeguarding public welfare. Case Study 5: Engineer-initiated termination due to scope creep. Engineer A was initially hired for structural design but is later pressured to take on full project management without formal agreement. Recognizing the scope creep, engineer resigns and issues a limited scope letter of release, clearly stating that they are only responsible for the structural works. They also notify the local authority about the scope boundaries. Engineer B must confirm the correct scope with the client and, if the new scope involves regulated engineering, make the necessary submissions to the authority. This case emphasizes the importance of scope clarity and proper documentation to prevent professional liability and ensure regulatory compliance. Beyond the typical termination cases, a letter of release is also required in various other scenarios. These include mutual separation between parties, changes in project ownership, retirement, illness, or death of the engineer, suspension or cancellation of registration by BEM, project abandonment or stoppage by order, and partial scope transfer to another engineer. In each of these situations, the principle remains the same: there must be no gap where a project is running without a responsible engineer. If such a gap arises, the local authority is obligated to halt construction until the matter is resolved. These provisions ensure that engineering projects maintain continuous professional oversight, thereby protecting public safety and upholding the integrity of the profession. Practicing engineers should adhere to several key principles to maintain professional integrity and compliance with BEM regulations. First, always respond within 14 days to any request for a letter of release. Silence is considered misconduct. Second, notify the local authority whenever you resign or are replaced to prevent unsupervised work. Third, document all reasons for termination in writing, whether related to fees, scope, or safety. Fourth, prioritize public health and safety above all else. If client instructions compromise safety, escalate the matter. Finally, as an incoming engineer, never accept an appointment without a letter of release or a confirmation letter from BEM. These practices not only protect the engineer but also ensure that engineering projects are conducted responsibly and safely. The letter of release is a vital component of professional engineering practice in Malaysia. It serves as a legal safeguard, a professional obligation, and a mechanism to protect public safety. Engineers must treat the release process with the seriousness it deserves, ensuring timely responses, clear documentation, and proper notifications to relevant authorities. By adhering to BEM's guidelines and the Registration of Engineers Act 1967, engineers uphold the integrity of their profession and contribute to the safe and responsible development of infrastructure. The call to action is clear: Always issue or obtain a letter of release when transitioning engineering responsibilities, and never allow a project to proceed without a designated supervising engineer.
If you like our content, kindly like, share and subscribe.